Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yo, what's good, original crew, man? We're back today, man. We got another Mr. Ballen for y'all today. Today's visual, top 3 scariest stalker stories. See, you ever had a stalker?
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to talk about your story. Because I already know about your story.
Yeah, you was looking like you were surprised. I'm like, you already know.
No, I was just for interaction. No, interact.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
Yeah, we ain't gonna go too much detail about that, you know.
So let's move along.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a stalker?
Not that I know of. I don't know. You never know.
Never know.
Your situation way different than mine.
Yeah, never know, child. Got somebody stalking, lurking. But yeah, that's nothing like.
What?
I said that's nothing to take lightly.
I'm just trying to figure out how to transition. No,
okay, don't
I'm just trying to transition.
Okay,
no, I'm just saying your situation. I'm just trying to figure out how to transition. Yeah, we got another Mr. Ballen for y'all today. So with that being said, before we get into it, make sure y'all check out the links in the description box
down below.
You already know where to go if you want to first support. All you gotta do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals,
lock it in with a thumbs up.
Hey man, let's go. Let's check this one out, man. Let's see what's about. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get it.
Don't forget, we survived for 200,000 years without being anywhere near the top of the food chain. And our ancient ancestors were able to do that by developing survival instincts. And those survival instincts are still buried in our subconscious today. So when you have a bad feeling about something, like something's wrong here, I don't know what it is, you should listen to that because it might just save your life. Before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak under the like button's chair and tie their shoelaces together. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. By the summer of 2007, Chris had been working as a park ranger in southeastern Pennsylvania for a number of years, and by and large, he enjoyed his occupation. Some of the time, he got to do what he loved, which was hiking in the forest. And some of the time, it required doing something he hated, which was office work that usually required staying late at night. On one of those late nights, in August of 2007, Chris's boss, Mike, said that he needed to leave the office and go down the access road to this tool shed they had. He needed to get some equipment and bring it back up to the office for some reason, and he said he'd be back in about 15 minutes. As soon as Mike left, Chris decided, you know what, I'm gonna take a break from my work and I'm gonna step outside for a minute. Right in front of the office building was a little staff parking lot, and then about 50 meters beyond that was the edge of this really dense forest where the access road that Mike had just gone down to get to the tool shed basically split right through the middle and went straight out past the office. When Chris stepped outside to take his break, he sat down on the front steps that overlooked that parking lot and the access road, and he was just kind of looking out towards the forest, not thinking about what he was looking at, just kind of mindlessly sitting there, when all of a sudden he just started to feel like someone's watching me. And instinctively, he turned around to look back into the office as if maybe someone was behind him, but he remembered that he and Mike were the only ones there that night, so no one's going to be behind him. And so he turned back around and he looked out at the parking lot and he didn't see any movement, and he looked down to the edge of the forest, which he could see because the moon was fairly bright that night, so the illumination was pretty good. And there was no movement against the tree line, there was no animals, there was no people, and Mike had not come back yet. So there's nothing going on in front of him, there's nothing going on behind him, but he just could not shake this feeling that someone was watching him. And so Chris, you know, he's not easily spooked. He's used to being out in the forest in the daytime and at night. He's used to being at this office. A lot of times he worked at the office on his own at night. So he's used to this environment. And so he thought, you know what, I'm gonna go look around. And so he walks down the steps and he walks into the parking lot and he begins looking behind some of the cars. There's only a handful in the lot. There's nothing in the lot, and he keeps walking till he's about 10 meters away from the edge of the forest. And he looks into the forest, and it's too dark to see anything, and there's nothing out here. There's no movement, there's no animals. Mike is still not back yet, and so even though he could not shake this sense that someone is watching him, he felt like, you know what, I did my diligence, and there's no one out here, so it's just gotta be in my head. And so he decides he's gonna go back inside. And so he turns around, and he starts walking back up towards the office, when all of a sudden he hears this whooshing sound come past his head. And he didn't know what it was, but it sounded like someone took a stick and threw it over him, so it's spinning like a tomahawk as it passed by his head. And because the sound was so loud and he was already on edge about someone potentially watching him, that he actually dove as soon as he heard it and fell to the ground and scrambled around and looked at the tree line from where this thing came from, but there's no one there. And he scrambles to his feet and he's still looking around, and he starts backpedaling towards the office with his eyes still on the forest, and his attention kind of shifts from the forest to what was just thrown at me. And he turns around and starts walking around looking for something on the ground, like a stick, to see if something really was thrown at him, but he can't find anything. He didn't do an exhaustive search. He didn't look under every single car, but an initial scan turned up nothing. And then he turns back to the forest and he doesn't see anything out there. And even though, again, he feels totally stressed out, like something's out here and I can't see it, he's like, am I going crazy? Did that really happen? Because I can't find this big stick that apparently flew past my head. So is this all happening in my head? But regardless, he's totally freaked out and he sprints back inside the office and locks every door. 20 minutes later, Mike comes blazing up the access road. He stops in front of the office and runs up the stairs. Chris goes over, unlocks the door, and he lets him in. And Chris is about to tell him about this crazy stick throwing incident, but he can tell Mike is really upset about something. Probably more upset about whatever happened to him than Chris is about this stick throwing thing. And so Chris tables his story. He locks the doors behind Mike and he turns to him and he says, "What's going on? What's wrong with you?" At first, Mike doesn't say anything. He just paces back and forth inside the office. And then finally, Chris calms him down and he gets him to explain what happened. Mike tells him that he was down at the tool shed, which is about a half mile down the access road and about 20 meters off the road into the forest. And he's at the shed, it's open, and he's pulling out the different pieces of equipment he's going to bring back to the office. And he says all of a sudden, all the hairs on his body stand up. He's got goosebumps. And immediately he thinks, someone's watching me. And he turns around and there's no one there. He looks to his right and his left. He kind of pokes his head in the shed, like is someone hiding in the shed? There's no one in there. He walks to the back of the shed. There's no one behind the shed. And he's just totally stumped why he's feeling this way. He goes back to the front of the shed and he's going over in his mind what made him feel this way. And he can't put his finger on it, but he cannot shake this feeling of someone watching him. And it's making him totally anxious. So he gets all the things he needs from the shed as quick as he can. He locks it up, he turns, and he starts speed walking back out to his truck. When he gets about 5 meters away, he hears footsteps running right to left behind him, back where the shed is. And because he was already completely on edge about someone watching him in the woods somewhere, he doesn't even turn around to see what that is. He knows he needs to run to his car and get inside and put steel between him and whatever is out there. Once he's inside, he locks the door, he turns on the ignition and looks one last time in the direction of where he came from. And to his horror, there is a man walking into the woods right next to the shed, turning the corner behind and disappearing into the woods. His instincts were spot on. He was being watched. And that's when Mike hit the gas and sped back to the office. Chris then tells Mike about his stick throwing incident because all of a sudden that seems a whole lot more real, and they both agree that whoever threw something at Chris is probably the same guy who was hiding near the shed with Mike. Concerned this guy might come back and break into the office, they stay the night there and they watch the whole time. They don't see him again. And the next morning they file a report and they tell the incoming park rangers what happened. But after this, there were no more reports of this strange hooded figure roaming around the forest. And to this day, Chris and Mike have no idea who he is or what he wanted. But they can both agree, whoever he was bad news.
Man, I thought it was deep. I thought it was deeper than that.
That's all it was.
Now I need some more, man. I need some more.
There's no more.
Cause this was 2007, right? Mm-hmm. You know what we watched earlier?
I knew that's what you was thinking.
When I first came across, when he first started talking, he said 2007. I said, no, that just don't make sense though, cause the guy, he operated down south though, in the forest. You know what I'm saying? Unless he was traveling. because he did make it to Tennessee, but Pennsylvania would have been too, like it's up too far, you know. But you never know though, cause the dude they said he operated what, Florida, Georgia, Carolinas, but he also used somebody's car in Tennessee. So, and it was around 2000. Bro, when I tell y'all, I believe like a lot of these stories that people come up missing, disappearing in the wilderness, are off the hands of some weird ass serial killer though.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people live off the grid.
And you said that's what he was living like
Yeah,
in the woods.
in wilderness. Yeah. Well, I ain't say that. That's what the damn show was saying.
What? Oh, that's what. Yeah. What's that called? Interview.
Yeah, and that's what they were interviewing him.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro. I do believe a lot of people live off the grid. And
is that where he like did most of like what got most of his people, or is that where he was taking them, or were they like hiking?
They were hiking. They were hikers.
Oh.
And so he was taking them off like.
Oh, okay.
And torturing them. From,
which he don't feel like it was torture, but whatever.
Bro, when you assault someone, not physically, but the other assault someone, come on now, and chain them up, and then decapitate them.
Yeah.
Bro, you're torturing people.
You're torturing.
I guess his idea of torture is putting them through severe pain for days. No, torture is...
Put me through pain for 10 seconds. It's
torture
to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. What are you doing? That's scary.
And what made you... Well, we found out.
It's not physical, it's psychological.
We found out, though.
Yeah.
But,
okay. But, yeah, this is how the story was. And I guess nothing ever happened.
Think serial, possibly? Or he was doing something illegal and thought y'all was going to...
Yeah, could have been... Because it's just kind of, like, strange. Like, okay, this one day, these activities are going on, and then you just, bye, nothing else.
Because maybe he was maybe he had somebody, maybe killing somebody, maybe he thought...
Because if you, like, mean no harm, why are you messing with people? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
In the summer of 2015, a young man named Paul was on his last day of a 7-day solo backpacking trip through a very remote area in Utah called the Dark Canyon Wilderness. Dark Canyon gets its name from its steep walls that block light in the morning and in the late afternoon. It's an area that's only accessible by foot, and it's not uncommon to go in there and not see another person the whole time you're there. That morning, Paul got up and set off on a day hike that would take him through a very forested area up onto a plateau where he planned to camp out for the night. About a mile into the hike, he found some amazing elk antlers, and he decided he wanted to keep them. So he threw them on his backpack and rested them at the top and continued on his hike. But the added 15 pounds of weight proved to be far more exhausting than he was anticipating, and very quickly he blew through all of his water. Even though he was within 1 mile of his final destination, this plateau, he decided to stop because he was so dehydrated, he needed to find water. So he puts his pack down, he puts the elk antlers down, and he starts walking around, and amazingly, he does find some water. Granted, it was kind of a gross puddle of standing water, but he figured, I can boil this, and it should be okay. And as he's preparing a fire to boil this standing water, he figures, you know what, if I'm making a fire here, I might as well just make my camp here. So he sets up his tent, and then he makes a fire, and he's about to start boiling this water when he realizes how dumb he's being. If there's a puddle of standing water right here, then probably just a little ways upstream, there's going to be some running water. Why don't I not boil this crappy water that will only yield, a couple sips of water, and go look for the running water where I can drink as much as I want? So he puts the pot down and he leaves all of his gear at the campsite, and he begins walking up this mountain to hopefully find a stream. And after about a half mile of walking up this mountain, he finds this little spring.
Is that not bizarre?
What?
You gotta walk half a mile upstream to the running water, but you was only a mile away from your actual destination.
Well, he just said mile into a hike, like a mile.
No, he was a mile away from his destination.
Oh, okay. Oh.
But you walk a half a mile to the stream for running water. You get what
I get what you're saying.
I don't know. I might be tripping.
Of water and go look for the running water where I can drink as much as I want. So he puts the pot down and he leaves all of his gear at the campsite and he begins walking up this mountain to hopefully find a stream. And after about a half mile of walking up this mountain, he finds this little spring. Immediately, he's down on hands and knees drinking as much water as he possibly can because he's super dehydrated. And after he's drank for quite a while, he reaches down to his belt where he kept his water bottles, and he realized he left all of his gear, including his water bottles, at camp. So he didn't have a way to collect this water. And so he's like, shoot, I gotta go back to camp and get the bottle and come back. I'm gonna burn it.
That fucking shit just don't make sense. If I'm walking to a stream of running water, why the hell would I? Because I'm out of water.
Yeah.
Unless he's delirious and not in his right mind.
Yeah, because I'm at this point, baby,
I would have already had my... Like, all right, let me go find the running water. I need to take my jugs and stuff with me.
Yeah.
So I can bring it back.
The only thing on his mind is just like...
And if I walk half a mile, now I got to walk another half a mile, I might as well just walk the first mile. Is that not...
a bunch of energy, but he's like, you know what can you do? I need the water. And so he gets up and he turns around and he starts walking back towards his camp. And immediately he starts to feel really anxious as he's walking back. He can't help but feel like someone's behind him watching him. And he kept turning his head thinking he's going to see someone just over the mountain who's quietly stalking him. And he just could not shake this feeling. And so as he's walking back to camp, every little sound he hears is totally throwing him off. Every little rustling leaf, every little bird overhead, he's totally on edge because he's convinced someone is behind me or someone's over there, someone's watching me. He finally gets back to camp, he gets his water bottles, and he considered not going back to the spring because he didn't want to cover that distance again because of how stressful it just was. But ultimately, he knows he needs the water. So either he's going to sit here for a really long time and boil a bunch of stagnant water, or he can just suck it up, walk to the spring, get some water, come back, and be good. Before he walks up to the spring, he grabs a really big stick to use as a club, and then he walks up. So now he's got some protection. And immediately, as he begins that half-mile trek to the spring, the anxiety pours right back over him, and he can't help but feel like someone is watching him. But he gets up to the spring, he fills his water bottles, he turns around, and he starts walking back, and he walks down this little rock face and lands on the trail he had just been on a minute ago, and he stops because he sees something on the ground that wasn't there before. A fresh mountain lion print is placed right in between two of his footprints that he had just made on his way back to the spring, meaning there's a mountain lion somewhere right around here that's not just watching me, it's hunting me. Paul doesn't really know what to do, so he runs to his campsite and gets in his tent and huddles in his tent for the rest of the night, hoping a mountain lion doesn't attack him. And fortunately, it does not. And what he thinks probably happened was when he picked up those elk antlers and put them on his backpack and was walking around with them, he probably attracted the mountain lion that thought he was an elk and therefore food.
Where we at? Let me see. I swear he said he was a...
There. That morning, Paul got up and set off on a day hike that would take him through a very forested area up onto a plateau where he planned to camp out for the night. About a mile into the hike, he found some amazing elk antlers and he decided he wanted to keep them. So he threw them on his backpack and rested them at the top and continued on his hike. But the added 15 pounds of weight proved to be far more exhausting than he was anticipating, and very quickly he blew through all of his water. Even though he was within 1 mile of his final destination,
even though he was in between, bro, that shit just don't make fucking sense, bro.
But I guess he stopped because he really needed some water. And I wonder if the final destination would have had those resources for him.
Bro, just get to look and boil the damn water.
But it wouldn't have been enough.
Make it enough.
Okay, let's move on.
Because the other, what I'm saying is, it just doesn't make sense. Because now you went half a mile there. Oh shit! I ain't got my water bottle.
You know what don't make sense?
Half a mile back.
You know what don't make sense? The only thing that doesn't make sense to me is the fact that you was like, because you was just a mile from wherever you had to be, and you was like, let me just set up ground here, and then you walking back and forth to go get the water when you could have just got all your stuff.
Half a mile there, half a mile.
I mean, I guess got the water if that's what you just absolutely need, and then just kept on to.
Well, I don't know the direction of the creek to the destination.
I don't know the direction either, but you already would have had your stuff on. I don't know. I don't know the.
But it didn't make sense to leave the
I'm a
water
visual
bottles.
person. I need to.
But it also doesn't make sense to leave the water bottles.
The water bottles was an accident. He left them by accident.
We don't know that for sure.
What
It sounds like a BS story too, though.
Oh, you just feel like it's...
Bro, because also you walk half a mile to the creek, half a mile back,
and then half
a mile there again, another half a mile back.
Yeah, it's a
so
lot
you walk
going
2
on.
miles.
It's a lot happening.
Instead of just finishing your track, it's a mile, bro. I've walked plethora of miles. Miles ain't that damn long.
Yeah, babe.
Now in the rugged terrain with a lot of stuff on you, yeah, it can be exhausting, right?
Yeah.
But also, is this campground like? Is it like a man-made campground where they would have supplies and necessary, or is just somewhere you normally camp out at that's a flat plain? Yeah. Now, if it's a flat plain with no resources or nothing that you normally just go to, different. But if it's an area, a zone destination where people might have something set up where, hey, this is a popular spot, you know what I'm saying, most people go to, that would be different. Then there will be some type of resources maybe there for you.
It kind of look like this, I guess.
I'm talking about where he was going, though. Ain't no telling.
Well, I looked up exactly where he was at, but I don't know. But anyway.
I don't know, man.
I'm not going to overthink
But now I ain't going to hold you. If it's like one, that's scarier than a motherfucker. Mountain lion. Hey, ain't going to lie. Ever since I seen that video with that motherfucker. Oh, my bad, y'all. He was... You know which one I'm talking about? But
I don't know which one you're talking about, but I've seen him.
Yeah, the one that was like, he was like, hey, and then just, and they were kicking all, like, the way they do it.
Yeah.
When they charging at you, they be clapping them hands.
Big old paws.
You know, I'm saying clapping their hands.
I said they got some big old paws.
Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, if I ever came across a mountain lion, I don't know what the fuck I would do, though. Personally, me, myself. Don't you supposed to, ain't it some tactic you supposed to do? Like make yourself appear bigger? Or say,
I know this with a bear, ain't it?
No.
What animal you supposed to make?
If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, get the hell down. If it's white, say motherfucking good night. That's a bear.
Oh, I guess you're supposed to, I don't know.
Hold on, so with a bear, if it's a brown bear, if I lay down, won't they come in? Like you fake like you dead.
I'm telling you, I'm sorry, but I'm not following those.
Oh, because they like fresh meat. They don't like dead meat.
Yeah.
But won't they be able to smell? Say fresh meat.
You trying to play me, sucker?
Fresh meat. I don't want to be a sin prey.
They never been a drug you on?
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you know.
Thought you were playing.
But don't with the mountain lions and stuff. Don't you post it like because that's what every time I see somebody encounter one, they don't like. I seen one riding on a bike and that joint was chasing him, and lucky he got away.
These new, I'm good.
Man, you never know. What about coyote
they may be on
though?
A different type of time.
What about coyote? Coyotes do be around.
Yeah, I know coyotes be around.
So what about a coyote? Because you remember back the neighborhoods you wanna move to, they got coyotes back there. You put your little dog out there and
why you always do that?
I'm just saying. You put
your
little dog outside.
Putting him out there at nighttime and stuff.
You never know. Go do your business. He go out there. What you gonna do?
I'm about to do something.
You gonna call me?
No, I wouldn't put him out there at nighttime. Yeah, because I would be scared of that. I really would.
It's a coyote! Man, somebody let me know some info in the comments. I know y'all know something.
I need to know what I need to do.
What are you supposed to do when, if you see a mountain lion? And what do we supposed to do? We come across a.
Well, I'm not gonna be seeing any mountain lions.
But you never know. It's mountains around here.
I ain't going nowhere to see no mountain lion.
You always want to go to East Tennessee?
When have I wanted to go to East Tennessee?
It's Gallenberg, girl. Gallenberg is East Tennessee.
I know it's East Tennessee, but I don't want to go there all the time. I ain't never asked to go to Gallenberg.
The mountains. Y'all always tell me, we want to stay in the cabins. We want to stay in the secluded area.
Well, my bad. I did know Gallenberg was East Tennessee, but I don't ask to go there. You used to be asking to go there all the time.
Yeah, you do.
I know.
Every time somebody say we want to take a trip to Gallenberg. I don't ask to go there.
They be like, you want? I'm like, oh, sure, cool. You the more scary one.
I ain't scary. I already told you the bears gonna walk up straight to the car, open the door. What you gonna do then?
Make sure the door locked.
And they brown bears. And they be on the porch.
That's fine, as long as they ain't bothering me. I may throw some out there for them. Well, no, I ain't
Oh,
gonna
you
do
should.
that. I ain't gonna do that because then they ain't gonna leave. They're gonna be like, I need some more. I'm like, oh, Lord. Yeah, you.
I need some more. I want you.
Oh, I want you.
Let's go. Good job, girl.
In April of 2020, a 17-year-old named Sam, who was an avid outdoorsman, decided to go on a one-night hike in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. The mountain's name has a bunch of supposed origins, but the one that's generally accepted is people are afraid of the Superstition Mountains because of all the mysterious deaths that have occurred there. And so because people would avoid these mountains in fear of mysterious death, it became these Superstitious Mountains. But Sam was not superstitious and regularly came out here to go hiking, in particular on this 8-mile loop that went through a canyon. And so this one night overnight he planned on doing was going to be on that 8-mile loop where he'd do 4 miles in, camp out, and then 4 miles back. And he planned to do it with a friend, but his friend at the last minute canceled, and so Sam teetered on not even doing it, but ultimately decided, okay, I'll just do it by myself because I'm very familiar with this area. On the day he was supposed to go do this hike, he had planned on getting there early in the day to have maximum lighting, but due to some unforeseen circumstances and traffic and bad road conditions, he didn't get to the trailhead until 5:45 p.m. that night. Sam knew it was a bad idea to start this hike so late because he was going to run out of daylight. He probably was not going to make it 4 miles to the point where he planned on camping out, but he figured with his good health and fitness, he could probably quickly make his way to the 2 or even 3 mile mark.
He said 5:45 p.m.
Yeah.
And he started starting the hike. Not morning, but p.m.
I think that's what it said.
Shit.
And there were some suitable campsites there. And so he decided he would kind of risk it and just try to go as fast as he could and use the daylight he had to reach a suitable campsite. But he wasn't able to move as fast as he thought he could, and soon the sun was down and it's totally dark and he's got his flashlight, but that only is able to shine like 10 feet in front of him. And then at one point he nearly falls off of this rock, and he knows had he fallen, he would have gotten really badly hurt, and he's 15 miles away from the nearest help, and he's in a bad cell phone service area, and the roads getting out here are treacherous. No one knows exactly where he is, and it dawns on him that you've made a pretty bad choice, and you should stop right now and make camp here and not try to risk it any further. And so as it happened, where he was, there was this forest right nearby, and he could see there was a clearing about 30 feet off the path when he shined his light. And so he walked into that clearing, and he found it was a great spot to make camp. And in fact, on the edge of this clearing was the remnants of a fire pit. It was very old, but it at least showed someone had camped out right here, and they seemed to have made it just fine. So suddenly he was feeling pretty smart, and he felt pretty good about where he was staying for the night. Now, Sam intentionally did not bring a tent. He liked to sleep on a sleeping pad with a sleeping bag over that, and then he would string up a tarp over the top of him in case it rained. And since this clearing was surrounded by a bunch of pine trees, he was able to string up his tarp over the top, and it was perfect. And pretty soon he had a fire going, and then he cracked open a can of beans, and he began eating his dinner. And as he was eating, he started to get a sense that something was off, something was not right. He began scanning the tree line as if he was going to find something out of the ordinary, but his visibility was incredibly limited because he was sitting right up against a fire. And if you've ever sat next to a fire in a dark forest, your visibility is like 5 feet in a circle around the fire. You really cannot see beyond that. And his vision was also limited by all the pine trees that encircled his clearing. So he really could only see what was immediately around him, nothing else. And he starts thinking, that's gotta be it. Maybe I'm just nervous because I have no visibility. But as he's rationalizing this kind of bad gut feeling, a rock the size of a marble comes soaring into the campsite and lands at his feet. And he looks down at the rock, and immediately he connects that to that sense of dread he had. And he's looking around a little more aggressively now, but again, his vision is very, very limited. And so for the next 15 minutes, Sam is really aggressively scanning the tree line and listening really intently, and he doesn't hear anything. He doesn't see any more rocks get thrown. And so he begins to rationalize and convince himself that there's nothing wrong here. That feeling I have, oh, don't worry about that. He starts telling himself, I must have kicked a rock. That's what it is. Or maybe a rock fell off a tree. But either way, it's something totally explainable and you got nothing to worry about. And after a little while, he convinced himself and he got into his sleeping bag under his tarp and he went to sleep. A couple of hours later, Sam wakes up and he has that same sense of dread, and now it's back with a vengeance. And he can't hear anything, he can't see anything, but he's definitely feeling like something is wrong. And at that moment, as he's listening really intently and looking really carefully, he hears the sound of rustling leaves. It sounds like someone walking through leaves about 30 or 40 meters away from his campsite. And initially, he can't tell if this person or animal is walking towards his campsite or away, but over the next 30 seconds or so, the sounds start to fade and he convinces himself that, okay, they've left and everything's fine. But just in case, he wanted to grab his flashlight and shine it in that direction, and so he reaches next to him where he had left it when he had gone to bed a couple hours earlier, and he can't find his flashlight. He's looking around for it and he can't find it, and he's like, man, that's weird. I had it right here, right next to my body, and it's not here anymore. And that's when the alarm bells start going off in his head, because the only way this flashlight moves is if he moved it. And if it's not here, how did it move? And so he jumps out of his sleeping bag, he ducks out from under the tarp, and he's looking around on the ground in the immediate vicinity of where he was sleeping to find this flashlight. And as he's looking, out of the corner of his eye, he sees some light. And he turns his head, and in the same direction that he had heard those footsteps, those rustling leaves, when he was still laying down, he sees his flashlight laying on the ground about 10 meters away, which means someone or something had been less than a foot away from him to get this flashlight that was right next to him while he was fast asleep and totally helpless, and had moved it all the way over there. And immediately, Sam thinks to himself, that's a trap. They are trying to lure me away from my campsite. Suddenly, he felt so scared he wanted to vomit, but he knew in order to survive this situation, he needed to keep his wits about him. So he puts his boots on and he grabs his knife, and he knows he's not leaving this campsite. In fact, he's going to build the biggest fire he can. He's going to stoke that fire as big as he can get it, and he's not going to go anywhere near that flashlight. For the next several hours, Sam just stood in the middle of his campsite holding his knife, preparing to confront whatever the heck is out in the woods. And over those several hours, he would hear footsteps approach his campsite, turn around, and leave. Every time the fire got lower, he noticed they would come closer and closer and closer, and when he would stoke the fire, they wouldn't come as close. But at about 3 a.m., he ran out of firewood, so unless he went into the woods to get more, he'd be out, and he's certainly not going into the woods. That's the whole point, is to avoid the woods where this thing is. And so as the fire died down, Sam prepared himself mentally for whatever happened next, because he knew that with that fire gone, this thing was comfortable coming all the way in, coming all the way up right next to him to get the flashlight. And so finally, he hears the footsteps approaching, and before this, the closest they had come was maybe about 15 meters away. They were far enough away it didn't feel intimate. It was terrifying, but he had some distance. This time, they walk right up to about 3 meters away, but they intentionally come behind the thickest group of trees, so he can't see them. And it's still dark outside, and he's in that bubble of light near the fire, so he's blind to whatever's on the other side of those trees. But he knows they're there, and they've stopped. And for 2 hours, this poor kid is standing in the middle of this campsite, facing in the direction of whatever is behind the trees. Probably his imagination is going crazy at this point with what could be behind those trees, just waiting for whatever happened next. But ultimately, the only thing that would happen is the sun would eventually come up, and right before it actually popped over the horizon, this thing on the other side finally moved, it turned around and ran away, and it did not come back. And so when the sun finally did come up, Sam didn't just charge out of there because he's still thinking there could be a trap. He waited until it was totally full sunlight, and then he packed up everything he had, and he practically sprinted back to the parking lot, back into his car, and he drove nonstop for 20 miles until he got to a gas station where he could park and collect himself. And when he got there, he got out of his car and he went in and he got a drink. And when he came out, he noticed someone had written something on the dust on the back window of his car. And he walks over and it just says, "Sleep well?" ? Sam is confident whoever was stalking him at his campsite is the same person or group of people that wrote this message on his car. And now Sam just wonders, what would have happened if I retrieved that flashlight? So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought of today's stories, and I will pin the best comment at the top of
What in the hell savage was that shit, bro?
Child, so
You know what I
felt
mean?
like
It do sound like the hills savage, man. I better quit going into the wilderness and these areas without,
Yeah, what you said
Folks get weird and weird about a day, don't they?
every day.
And what you gonna do about it? Not a damn thing.
Can't do much.
You gotta sit there and take that pack.
I mean, well, you can try to do something, but I guess in his situation, since he couldn't see, can't do much. Just weigh it out. Wait it out.
Hey, man. Y'all spam us up in the comments, man. Let us know y'all thoughts about it for us in the comment section down below. But until next time, y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is
Sierra Nicole.
We Are.
Kid and C.
We out.
Go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar, 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 dollar.